President Biden has had a rather bumpy path in polls the last few months, starting with the escape from Afghanistan, which didn't go the way we would have wanted, and then inflation coming on board and actually Omicron coming back. Well, the question now is that changing because of his handling of Russia's inflicting of a war on Ukraine? Because he's getting a lot of high marks from various quarters for the way the president is handling that. For some answers, we turn now to Frank Luntz. He's a famed pollster and CEO of FIL Inc. So, Frank, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it. Are his poll numbers coming back?
Slightly, and they certainly stopped the fall. You're correct that Afghanistan was the moment for him that things turned bad. The public was very resentful about how he left. They saw the visuals. And David, what this has taught me over the last few months and few years is how important the visual is in media. If you see a collapse, a crisis, that triggers greater public movement than anything that's written in the newspapers. And what they saw in Afghanistan was a failure. What they see in Ukraine right now is a tragedy. It's a disaster. And people do not blame the president for that. So, in fact, his fall over the last 3 or 4 months has stopped. The public still does not credit him for success with inflation. They still hold him responsible for what's happening at the border. But the war in Ukraine is helping him in his attributes, in his leadership traits. They're not great numbers, but they are good numbers. And it's the only thing that Biden is being rated positively on at this moment.
So, Frank, you're absolutely right. We're seeing the tragedy in Ukraine, particularly in places like Mariupol. We can't believe the death and destruction being wreaked there. At the same time, another thing we see typically on our evening news, for those of us who still watch some evening news, is the prices at the gas pump. You talked about the inflation issue. We had the president come out earlier today and say we're going to release, and he's about to come back. I'm sorry. He's about to come out in about an hour, and we expect he's going to release a fair amount of oil from the strategic petroleum reserves. So if you compare inflation and the way he's handling with Ukraine, which is more important to the voter?
It's definitely inflation. It's food and fuel. And it's every single day. It's every voter. It doesn't matter whether you're from Massachusetts or Montana. Inflation affects everyone, and it's hour by hour. We have to eat. We have to turn on electricity. We have to use our cars or vehicles to get to work. And that's holding back the president from assuming any kind of credibility. Right now, the public believes that he didn't create, and I want to emphasize, the public believes he didn't create the problems in Ukraine, inflation, crime, immigration. They don't believe he created it, but they do believe that he's failed to solve it. And our expectations for him are higher based on what he said during the campaign, based on how he promised to govern. And quite frankly, he ran as Harry Truman, a centrist Democrat. He sought to govern as Franklin Roosevelt, very much a progressive. And when you look at the results, it feels more like Jimmy Carter.
Well, that's not a place that the president probably wants to be, I think it's fair to say. Frank, let me take a turn now to something that we saw about last Sunday at the Academy Awards when Will Smith went up and smacked Chris Rock on a stage in front of millions and millions of people. And the aftermath of that, people are still talking about it. Is that a one-off? Was that just specific to that particular instance and particularly to the entertainment industry? Or does it tell us something broader about our society right now?
Well, this is part of the culture wars, and I wish they were not happening because they're divisive. People get mean about it. Will Smith has apologized to every individual with one exception. He hasn't said anything to young men that this is not how you behave, that if someone tells a joke you don't like or if someone's offensive to you, that doesn't give you the right to hit them, doesn't give you the right to do a violent act. And my fear, David, and this is way outside the political realm, but it is certainly about American culture, is that young men who follow Will Smith, he won more awards than any other actor in the Kids' Choice Awards. He is respected by young people. He was revered by them. If he doesn't tell young men, do not do this, I'm afraid that you're going to see them acted out again and again. His own son tweeted, "This is how we do things." Well, no, it's not. And culture is essential to behavior. It's essential to who we are as a country. And this is just another example of a role model. And he is a role model, whether we like it or not. People do follow him, of a role model doing bad behavior and not taking responsibility for it. Again, it doesn't matter what he says to Chris Rock. It doesn't matter what he says to the Academy. What matters is young people seeing him and acting out exactly as he did.
And Chris Rock actually had his first public appearance in Boston and came out. And they had, I think, a 2-minute standing ovation, and he was rather emotional about it, but said that was not the time he really wanted to address it. He hasn't really addressed it fully. At the same time, these are not the only role models in our society. I wonder if there are some connections, or maybe this is really a strain to try to make a connection with some of our political leaders and the way they've conducted themselves. Maybe not physically hitting one another, but the way that they use words can sometimes be an assault as well.
Absolutely. Our previous president and how he talked about women was ridiculous and reprehensible. The current president, in the middle of a debate, telling his opponent to shut up. This is not how Americans used to behave. This is not part of who we were, but it is part of who we are, David. And I'm afraid for the future. Young people are getting all the wrong messages. There's a reason why they're acting out. There's a reason why there's an increase in violence in schools. That picture that you have up there of Will Smith acting that way, I'm afraid of what's going to happen in high schools across America. I teach in the inner city in Watts, in California, and I'm going to be in front of my students on Sunday. I can't wait to hear what they have to say to me, but I got to tell you, if we don't learn apology, if we don't learn humility, then we've learned nothing as a society, and things are only going to get worse for us.
Okay, so Frank, finally, let me turn this around, if I can, in this sense. You know people so well. You do so many focus groups on so many subjects. Is there an opportunity for some leader actually to step forward and take a different tack and really stand up for decency, for basic manners, for treating people with respect, and maybe garner some support?
Absolutely. We got 2 people on the Republican side and 2 people on the Democratic side. Tim Scott, the senator from South Carolina, thinks and acts with his heart, not with his gut. Ben Sasse from Nebraska, the senator, has written books and has studied parenting, and that's more important to him than policy. On the Democratic side, Mitch Landrieu, there is no living politician who loves people more and gets them and interacts with them than the former mayor of New Orleans, who's now running Barack Obama's infrastructure campaign, and either Michael Bennet, the senator from Colorado, or Cory Booker, the senator from New Jersey. These are people who speak out of compassion rather than out of hate. Both parties have people like this. The question is, will they be destroyed by others who only seek to divide, who seek to criticize and condemn? Again, David, I'm nervous about our future.
Frank, despite your nervousness, it's really great to have you with us. That's Frank Luntz. He is the CEO and founder of FIL Inc.